on? This is your girl Dottie Regular True, all the ways from talk to dot. My program, when I work with people that are in abusive relationships, this is how I break it down. I break it down into 4 categories. One is those that haven't gone into a relationship. You don't want to enter an abusive relationship, because when you go in, it's a different thing. So you want to know the signs, you want to know the red flags. A lot of people in abuse, they say, I wish I knew these things, and that's because potentially they didn't know what red flags were. They didn't know. If they knew, they wouldn't go into it. So I try to teach people what the red flags are, so that you don't make the mistake of going into it. Now, let's say you never knew what the red flags are, or you knew and you ignored it and you went into the relationship for love. No hard feelings. Yeah, you're in there. The next set of people is, I want them to understand the relationship, because some people live in denial, or they just don't know that they're being abused. So I try to expose domestic abuse so they can understand that, look, these things happening, this is abuse, this is what abuse is. And then when they realize that it is, what next? What are you going to do? Are you going to just stay there the rest of your life and say, oh, my life is over? Or have you decided that, okay, fine, I now understand that this is abuse and I want to get out? Now, when you choose to get out, I work with you on an exit plan. We call it your prison break, because literally you are breaking out of prison. So it's a prison break. Remember, when you're breaking out of prison, like if the guards catch you, they shoot you down. And this is what an abusive relationship is. You don't want to get caught out. The question, that people ask all the time, should I stay in an abusive relationship? Before I go into the question of the day, I want to just quickly talk about what domestic abuse is. Because sometimes people are being abused and they don't even know that they're being abused. So let's back up a bit, for those that don't know what abuse is, because we want to educate a whole lot of people. We want people to understand what's going on. So domestic abuse is someone, a partner, trying to use control, force, physical violence, financial, sexual, and all that, to control or overpower the other party. It could be male or female. To overpower them and to get them to do things that they want them to do. Some of these things are things that they don't like doing. So a lot of times here, domestic abuse actually starts from the mental side, starts from the psychology, it starts with the psychology of things. But a lot of times people don't see the mental part of it. They only see the physical. I mean, obviously by the time a woman comes out with black eyes and all that stuff, then they're gonna see it. They're gonna see it and say, oh, hang on, is everything okay? And there's only so many times you can lie that, I fell down the stairs, I bumped into a branch, I slapped myself, or whatever excuses people come up with. So there's only so many times you can tell those stories. Afterwards, it becomes obvious that something is going on. I mean, by the time you get to the doctors a few times, people know. But with the psychological and emotional abuse of it, people don't see it. But what people need to understand, that a lot of times, in a normal situation, abuse starts from the mental bit, because by the time a person actually hits you, they must have done some psychological work on you. So if you meet a man or a woman on the first day and they slap you, you'll be like, hang on, what's that about? What are you hitting me for? Do you understand? But a lot of times, they've got you to fall in love. They've got you warped up mentally. They've twisted your brain in so many ways, so that by the time they actually hit the person, it's already happened. A lot of times, non-violent relationships could actually become violent. Especially, remember that abuse is about power and control over the other party. So in the event that one person begins to wake up from the abuse and they don't want to be controlled anymore, they don't want to be isolated anymore, they don't want any of those things, the person who is abusive might want to use physical violence to control them. Whenever they feel like they're losing their grip, then the physical part starts. So a lot of times here, in an abusive relationship, if an abuser is with someone who is very compliant, right? Who is very compliant, the odds are he might never actually get physical. So you might just have a lot of jealousy, a lot of control, a lot of name calling, walking on eggshells, gaslighting, insults, financial control, and all that. You may just have all of that and not be hit. And you find out that people in emotionally abusive relationships, you hear them say stuff like, why would he just hit me? Why wouldn't she just hit me? You know why? Because the mind torture is so much. And the truth is, the longer you stay in an abusive relationship, it gets worse. It gets worse to break out. It gets worse to break out of. It's just a terrible place to be. You don't have to be hit to be abused. There's so many elements of things that make up domestic abuse. You understand? So so this is what it is in a nutshell about domestic abuse. This is what it is. If someone controls who you speak to, if someone controls who you see, when you go out, when you come in, when you sleep, who you talk to on the phone, if someone is always checking up on you, makes you explain everything, like who are you talking to, why were you talking to them, why did you have to go out, why did it take you so long to do that, did you go shopping, how much did you spend? If they have to control everything, they have to make all the decisions. And I say this all the time, and please be clear about this. If you have somebody that does just one of these things, they just have some issues in life that could be dealt with. To decide and decipher that you're in an abusive relationship, it has to be a couple of them together. So if you might just have a jealous person, and don't say they're abusive because they're jealous, they're just jealous and they need to deal with their jealousy issues. But when you have someone who is jealous, who is controlling, who insults you, who puts you down, who checks up on you constantly, who does all of these things, that, oh my goodness, in fact, you have a narcissist. Do you understand? You got a narcissist. So this is what abuse is in a nutshell. This is what abuse is. The other question that people ask, can an abusive person change? Hell no, they can't change. They don't change. It doesn't happen. I've never seen them change. Not one day, never read about it. It doesn't happen. But if by some miracle a narcissist or an abusive person changes, let them change for someone else, not for you. Because putting yourself back in that mix will kickstart everything. It's like someone who gave up hard substance, drugs and alcohol. They worked so hard to give it up. And then what happens? You put them in a place where there's alcohol, there's drugs and all that. They're going to crack after a period of time. So even if by some miracle, an abusive person, a narcissist managed to change. I've never heard that before. But if they do manage to change and you go back into their life, you become that trigger, you become that drug. That person that they've controlled and manipulated for so long, that person that they've abused for so long, it's going to take a period of time for it to happen again. So yeah, if they do change, thank you, Jesus, they changed. Bye. I still don't want to have nothing to do with you. Change for someone else. You can check out my YouTube channel, which is, let's check talk to dot, which is talk number 2 dot. Yeah, if you check my YouTube channel, I've got a playlist called Exposing Domestic Abuse. There you find videos that tell you what domestic abuse is, what emotional abuse is, what narcissism is. You understand? It tells you, can an abuser change? I've got videos around all of those topics, because what happens is people ask questions and I create videos for them, because I think that sometimes people need to watch their life and then they just wake up and say, oh, hang on, this is my life, how is this person telling my story? So I do a lot of videos. So check my channel. If you like what you see, subscribe. There's a playlist there called Exposing Domestic Abuse. Videos come out every Tuesday. You will see what domestic abuse is. Question, which is, should I stay in an abusive relationship because of the children? Oh, those little angels, like, I don't want to have a broken relationship. What are they going to do without their father? What are they going to do without their mother? Maybe I just stay, maybe I just manage, maybe I just do what I'm supposed to be doing, what they've told me to do, just play the game just so that the children can have a secure home. Stop there. Stop right there. If you're watching this live and you think that way, then you know what? You need to take a step back. The truth of the matter is, you're not helping your children by staying in an abusive home. So if you ask me the question, I know a lot of people are of the opinion that you can't help someone take a decision. I'm not like that. If you ask me a question, I'm in an abusive relationship, should I stay? I wouldn't even need to consult. I would just say to get out of there quickly. So if you got kids and you're saying, should I stay in an abusive relationship because of the kids? Don't stay in an abusive relationship because of the kids. Leave an abusive relationship because of the kids. You get me? Children are the silent victims in an abusive relationship. They didn't ask to be there. They didn't ask to experience it. You might say, oh no, it's not physically violent. It's just that, he just calls me names and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be a physical abusive relationship for it to affect the children. Children pick up your vibes, they pick up your vibes, they pick up the aura. They're very, very intuitive. So where there is so much strife in a relationship, there is abuse going on, the children will feel it. Now, I'll give you I've got a video as well on YouTube. It talks about the impact of domestic abuse on children. Now you have to understand, right? Those quarrels, those shoutings, those insults, the fact that you are constantly sad, the fact that you cry all the time, it affects the children's aura. It affects their development. Now science has proved that children that grow up in an abusive home, they do not develop properly emotionally. They don't have control over their emotions because of what they're saying. Because today, dad and mom are happy, tomorrow they're quarreling, today they're smiling, tomorrow they're crying. All of these things which affect you as an adult, it affects them as well. No matter how much you hide, you try to protect them from seeing it, they feel your vibes, they feel your vibrations, and they can feel it. So in leaving your children in an abusive relationship, you're going to affect their mental development, their social development. They're going to have issues. Now, if you are in an abusive relationship and you're sticking it in there because of the kids, do you notice that, you can't understand them sometimes? You don't understand why they scream. One of the things that science has proved that happens to children that are raised in an abusive relationship is that, one, outside the fact that they don't develop properly emotionally, they have issues with their social communication. They find it difficult to interact with other children. They find it difficult to communicate with other children, to communicate their feelings. They're not in control of their emotions. They cry for no reason. They scream for no reason. They're moody for no reason. They even have physical ailments, like they have issues in sleeping. They have issues with their sleep pattern. They can't sleep at night. They stay up very late, till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. They just can't sleep. They have nightmares. They see stuff in their dreams and stuff like that keeps them troubled. In extreme cases, they lose speech. So in abusive relationships, potentially your children will lose speech. Now it depends on how young they are. Obviously, abusive relationships start from scratch. So potentially your children will lose speech. Now, if you ask me, should I stay in an abusive relationship because of the kids? With these things I've said, and like I said, I've got a video on YouTube. I'll post the link later that goes extensively into these things. Would you want to put your children through this because you don't want them to be children of a broken home? The truth is, the day the abuse started and the children began to feel the vibe of abuse, they were already children of a broken home. Because the truth is, with an abuser and a victim, there is no togetherness. You guys are broken. You're not together. So even though you live in the same house, it's a broken relationship. So your children live in a house of a broken relationship. So you might as well not be there. I say it all the time. Children do best in a safe, loving environment, whether it be with one parent or with two parents. So if two people are together and they're happy, that's the best place for children to be. If two people are together and they're very unhappy, then obviously that is the worst place to put children. Now, as children proceed in an abusive relationship, as they grow up, they won't do very well in school. They will get into trouble with the teachers and their peers. They might take to fighting, or they might just be very socially distant from the rest of the class and their peers. As they get older, to teenage age, they will become truants. They will skip school, play hooky, they will, hang about. A lot of them, good percentage of them, end up going into alcohol and drugs because they're trying to find their peace. A lot of them cannot even understand why they are the way they are, but it was because they were raised in an abusive relationship. Now scratch that. As a woman or as a man in an abusive relationship, right? You absolutely do not like the abuse you are receiving. You absolutely detest it. Now guess what? Yeah? Guess what? Statistics has proved, that 1 in 3 boys that were raised in an abusive home end up to become abusers themselves. Now, you're staying in an abusive relationship because of the children, but you're raising a son who is going to be exactly like the man you detest. So why are you there? And it's not his fault because that's what he saw. You're raising children that will grow up to say that it's okay to be abused. You're raising sons that think that that's the way to speak to a woman, that's the way to treat a woman. You're raising girls, daughters, that believe that this is the way that I should be spoken to. I was in a conference once and I heard this woman speak, and she said, sadly, she just left an abusive relationship, marriage. And she said, sadly, She wished her mom had left, but her mom stayed because she wanted to keep the marriage together. She wanted to keep the family together. And she said she grew up there. And she said it's so sad because she doesn't know what real love and real relationships look like, because she said her father was violently abusive to her mother. And she grew up seeing them fight, mom with black eye, broken bones, and her mother stayed. She said, strangely, after she grew up, teenage age, she just ended up dating guys, attracting guys that were like her father. And even though she didn't like to be hit, it was almost like some of these things that her mother went through, it was normal for her. It was normal for a guy to insult her. It was normal for her to be eggshelling, tiptoeing around the house, because that's how she saw her mother. But I think when she got married, right, when she got married and her husband began to hit her, that was the one thing she said, I wasn't going to take that. And she just said, I can't do this. And she said, well, she's left that home, but she's almost like, I don't know what a normal home looks like. Now, when you stay in an abusive relationship, this is what you do to your children. People wonder why marriages are declining every day. Marriages are falling apart. Relationships are falling apart. It's because our parents, us as well, don't take the right decisions for our children. Children need to be protected. A child in an abusive relationship, they're just a silent victim. As much as you are a victim, they are victims as well. They can't escape. They can't shout out. They can't talk. They're just there watching. They're watching, okay, is daddy going to do the right thing, or is mommy going to do the right thing? Well, when you stay in an abusive relationship saying, oh, I'm teaching my children that love conquers all, you know, that you should endure, you know, things will change. Why you think you're teaching them love and all that? Guess what you're teaching them? You're teaching them codependency. You're teaching them that it's okay for these things to happen, and I just stay dependent on someone, like my life depends on that person. You're teaching them that they should not have boundaries. They grow up to have people around them that just break boundaries around them. They also grow up to become people that can't keep boundaries. They can't listen to people. They just do whatever they want to do because they grew up in a house where these things were happening. You're raising children that will believe that it's okay to be abused. Sometimes I read comments and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's 2020 and people still think like this. I read comments where people say stuff like, yeah, she deserved to get it, you know. I mean, why women like men that are aggressive, so she deserves it. You understand? But it's ignorance. I read one comment where one guy said something like, there's nothing wrong with a man who chooses to discipline his wife. If it means he has to hit her to make her listen, then that's okay. Now, I read the comment and I was a bit offended. I was like, oh my goodness, this is 2020. You understand? However, I thought about it that if this boy or this man actually was raised in a home where this is how his father raised him, and this is how his father treated his mother never said anything. Of course, for him, that's what happens. That's just what it is. You understand? So I was upset, but I couldn't be upset with him because I don't know his background. I don't know how he was raised. But that's just what you're doing. When you stay in an abusive relationship for the children, this is what you're teaching them. And guess what? If it's one of those weird, narcissistic, abusive relationship, you know what? Your children, if by some miracle they don't end up becoming narcissists themselves or victims themselves, or some miracle they end up being normal, when they get to teenage ages, you know, especially in the Western world, when they can get that council flat or they can get their own house, you know what? If the woman was the victim or the man was the victim, they're going to hate you because they will look back and say, they will resent you. Because they will think, why didn't you save us? Why didn't you save us from this situation? A lot of children that grow up in abusive homes, they can't wait to be teenagers so they can run away. Now you grow up, your kids are teenagers, you think, oh, they don't listen to me, or he's just like his father, or he's just like his mother. They don't listen, they don't want to come home. They're running away. They are running away. That's what's happening. Do not stay in an abusive relationship because of the children. Run away from an abusive relationship because of the children. As I say, one love, peace, guidance, and respect. Catch you guys later.